As the November 11, 2023 governorship election in Imo State gears up, the support base of the Labour Party candidate, Senator Asa Nachonu, is increasing. Flagging off his campaign in Obiaraeri, Imo State, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the February 25th presidential election, Mr. Peter Obi, says that the party would be victorious on November 11. He further described Asa Nachonu as the only governorship candidate of the party in Imo State and urged the people of the state to come out en masse and vote Achonu as the next governor of Imo State on November 11. However, Senator Achonu, who is the governorship candidate of the party, has promised to fix the state if he wins the governorship election. He maintained that on assumption of office as the next governor of the state, he would conduct local government election, fix the roads and electricity and insecurity, and ensure that the civil servants and pensioners are promptly paid. Achonu promised to make history by becoming the first physically challenged person to emerge a governor in Nigeria. Joining us on the morning show as we look at the campaign activities of Senator Asa Nachonu, Labour Party governorship candidate in Imo State, is Dr. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, a development economist, investment banker, and director of strategies, Labour Party campaign in Imo State. And joining us later on the show is Nick Opara-Ndudu, head economic team, Labour Party campaign organization in Imo State. Both men will be discussing Senator Asa Nachonu's governorship campaign activities ahead of the November 11 election in the state. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, Nayo. Thanks for having me.
Well, Dr. Obiaraeri, it's good to see you again on the morning show.
Thank you,
Dr. A bit
Pati.
of background to this conversation so that we can focus on the issues. Now, number one, this week, we had a conversation with spokespersons of the APC in Imo State, Mr. Jerry Chukwueke and Mr. George Agbakahi. After that, we also spoke to a representative of the People's Democratic Party in Imo State ahead of the November 11 election. That's Nwanya Jones. I hope I'm pronouncing the name very well. And then today, we have you, Nnaemeka, to come and tell us about the Labour Party and how you are preparing. But one matter that we need to clear before we go ahead was, I recall 2 days ago, Jerry Chukwueke of the APC say, it's Senator Opizodimma who is going back to Douglas House, after that election. When the issue of Labour Party and Asa Nachonu senator was brought up, he dismissed it. He said, look, Labour Party is not even sure of who the gubernatorial candidate is. And there had been an issue. Senator Achonu being challenged, I think, by Chief Joseph, in court and all of that, and talks about faction within the Imo Labour Party. Who is your authentic candidate? Are you sure the candidate for whom you are director of strategies is the authentic one? Just at least let's clear that first in response to what Jerry Chukwueke said 2 days ago.
Labour Party has no faction in Imo State. Labour Party has only one candidate, distinguished Senator Asa Nachonu. The party leadership confirmed it. The party leader, Peter Obi, National Chairman Obiaraeri were there to flag off the campaign. Go to INEC, Atan's name is registered as the candidate. Basically, what you're seeing today are just distractions, paid people trying to create distractions. The Labour Party Imo is very focused and focused to win the November 11, 2023 election. Imo State practically needs redemption, and that redemption will come by the way of electing Senator Asa Nachonu on November 11. There is no faction of Labour Party in Imo State as of today. Either imaginary or in reality, no faction at all.
All right, so he's the only candidate come November 11.
The only candidate.
Yeah, Labour Party candidate. Okay. Now let's talk about his manifesto, his plans for the Imo State people. This week we had the opportunity to look at some plans from the other parties. It would be great to hear what you would do. I mean, he's talked about security, which is top on the agenda, condemning the killings that happened, a few days back in the state. Also looked at some other education, poverty alleviation. But take us through, what are some of the plans for
Clearly,
Imo State
security
people?
is number one. And like Atan has always said, Security is not something you solve through kinetic process. You must apply both the kinetic and non-kinetic. Recall that this insecurity in Imo State started in 2020, 2021. Imo State happens to be one of the most peaceful states in the whole of the Southeast. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court happened in January 2020. From then, everything went southward. I come from a community called Ihube, autonomous community in Imo State. As I talk to you today, out of the 11 electoral wards in Okigwe, 7 are being controlled by bandits. Local bandits, not bandits imported from everywhere. Public schools in those wards have, over the last two years, there is no public school in those wards. You can confirm from anybody. Imo State actually is the epicenter of insecurity in the whole of the Southeast. The insecurity in Abia State, look at Abia State, most of the parts of Abia State that have insecurity are parts of Imo State where they have boundaries. The same thing for Anambra, Ihiala, and all the rest of them. So insecurity is one of the things that TAN is going to tackle. And it's not just going to tackle it by bringing brute force. We know that security is domestic. You cannot bring somebody from Pambegwa or Yenegoa to come and solve the insecurity in the Southeast. We've advocated for the involvement of the communities. You are not reinventing the way. P2B did it in Anambra State. Even Ojuzo Kalo, in 2002, when the fights were disturbing the whole of Abia State, Aba was a no-go area. He rallied the traders in Aba, they set up the Bakassi, and in a space of 1 year, they wiped out the insecurity. When P2B became governor in Anambra State, insecurity was so rife. It was so bad in nature that if you're carrying a polythene bag, they don't even ask you what is that. They will use the knife to cut off your hand. What did Peter do? He rallied the state assembly. They passed a law. If your house and your forest is used to house any kidnap victim, you will lose it. You will pull it down. And then he asked the 177 autonomous communities to donate their sons. Every community knows those who are bad, who are good, and who are ugly. I grew up in Imo State. I did my primary school and secondary school there. So I know the mentality and the psyche of our people. You know, there's this Igbo adage that says, Ofone shero or herie. If Ohashero Ofone, he cannot finish it. And interpreted, one person cannot cook enough food that can feed the public, but the public can cook enough food that will feed somebody to the fullest. Basically, what Peter did was involve the communities. Each of the autonomous communities donated 20 of their sons. Peter trained them, working with the police and army, equipped them, bought innocent Hilux trucks for every of those communities. They gated their communities in 6 months. Insecurity in Anambra State was tackled because the communities were directly involved in protecting their domains. In fact, it was so bad that even the main kidnapper, Ivan, left Anambra State and set up his base in Festac in Lagos. For 5 years, Anambra was rated the safest state in the whole of the southeastern Nigeria. That is something Atan wants to do. Democracy, rule of law, transparency and accountability. What is happening in Imo State is a loss of confidence of the people on those that purport to govern them. Where I come from, people are so scared. They cannot provide intelligence to the police or army because you don't even know who they are talking to. Some of them are also being threatened because they open up, those bandits will behead them. As of today, most traditional rulers have left their domain. Some of them are in Abuja, some of them are in Lagos because they are not even being carried along in what is being done. So simple. We've done proposals on this. You see the manifesto. Atam promised one thing. He's going to conduct transparent local government election. It's not the kind of local government election where one party sweeps the stake. Transparent. If people succeed in electing those they prefer, you have councillors and the resources of this local government used in those local government area. Insecurity will be a thing of the past. They talked about, oh, we have a Bubago. Who are the members of the Bubago in Imo State? I come from a community. We don't even know those who are Bubago from our community. We don't know any of them. So we say simple. Out of the 650 autonomous communities, if you bring 30 to 50 of these youths, train them, and that is what Atan plans to do. Equip them, just like what P2B did. Get their communities. If you have 9,150 youths in this 650 autonomous communities properly trained to protect their communities. Imo is a very small landmass state, 5,150 square kilometers. They will chase away these bandits within 6 months.
Okay. Well, we're going to bring the other guest in, Mr. Nick Opara-Ndudu. Please, I would like you to answer this. Imo has, as we speak today, one of the highest unemployment rates in Nigeria.
Yes.
Highest miserability index, as we speak today. And in the first half, it's part of the 28 states that didn't get anything as regards FDI. What is the plan as stated in your manifesto to, one, face unemployment rate? Please give me step-by-step empirical analysis of this. I would like to come to Mr. Nick Opara-Ndudu first, and afterwards you can answer that question, please.
Okay, thank you very much
yes, sir,
for having me on this program.
Yes.
I think even before I answer that question, if you don't mind, it's also important that we put forward some statistics. When we are talking about securing a state like Imo, and we are looking at the kinetic solution, we also need to look at the soft side of the solution. The fact is, and these statistics bear us out, Imo State has done so little in terms of trying to promote or improve on the HDI, Human Development Index. And the critical areas of investment have been glossed over by government, and the statistics bear us out in these areas. The critical investments needed in areas like health and education have been lacking. If you read or if you have access to the State of the States report by budget for 2022, you'll find that Imo State has the lowest per capita expenditure on health, on education in the whole of the Southeast. Imo State's budget is 381 naira only. 381 naira only per citizen of Imo State. Pales into insignificance when you look at a state like Abia. Abia has 1,441 naira per capita. Anambra, 1,759 naira per capita. Ebonyi, 4,693 per capita. Enugu, 3,507. That's what they're spending per capita in their states. Imo State is the worst in terms of investment in education in the whole of the Southeast. And it ranks 35 out of 36 of the whole states in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If you go to health, the same thing is there. Imo spends only 581 naira per capita on health in the state. Abia does 979 naira per capita. Anambra does 919 naira per capita. Ebonyi, 3,900. Enugu, 1,551. And you know that if you're unable to invest in the human, what I'll call the social infrastructure, okay, you're unlikely to have the kind of environment that will be conducive for even to for
so
you
that's
to
why we're
secure.
saying the solution as stated
Now,
in your manifesto to those problems.
Yes, the solution.
Step-by-step analysis.
Yes. Essentially, and we know it, there are basically 2-3 ways to create jobs. We are talking about...
Is that in your manifesto?
Yes, it's in the manifesto.
Okay,
and I'll leave a copy of it with you.
Okay.
Because it's a document I believe should be made available to your network. Now, in terms of creating jobs, there are basically 2-3 ways of creating jobs in a rural economy or an economy like Imo State. One is agriculture. Now, the rural areas have been neglected in Imo State. There are lots of cash crops that abound in Imo State, from cassava to corn to maize, whatever it is. And the intention of the Achone administration is to make sure that we maximize the benefits from the various agro-production value chains. For instance, by encouraging the private sector to make critical investments in the processing of the primary commodities that will come out of the rural areas. And the government will essentially support the rural farmers in making sure that those agro-commodities are grown. Because at the end of the day, if you have these commodities coming out from the rural communities, then we will be in a position to have these commodities processed by the industries that will be set up for this purpose. By the way, these industries are going to be run critically and fundamentally by the private sector. Now, another area is industrialization. The plan is to have a minimum of 2 industrial estates in each of the 3 senatorial zones of Imo State. If you know Imo State very well, then Opara axis of Imo State, which, by the way, is probably one of the most backward parts of Imo State, is known for agriculture, just like many other parts of the state. There is a plan to have an agro-processing estate or cluster in Opara. There's going to be a line manufacturing plant. The current Owerri industrial area, which was started by Mbakwe, since the 80s, and which hasn't been completed up till now, will be completed by the Achone administration. And what essentially needs to be done is to provide a network of roads, not more than 5 to 10 kilometers of durable roads in these areas, and these places will be good for light manufacturing.
In the Olo axis, if you know the history of Igbos or the Ndi Igbos, you know that the Olo people dominate the pharmaceutical market. The plan is to have a pharmaceutical cluster around the Olu area because they dominate that market. We're also going to have, along the Okigwe axis, things that were even thought out by Mbakwe way back 40 years ago, where when he started with the clay products industries in Ezinachi Okigwe, with the Nso tiles in Ehimembano, and so on and so forth. These are things that would require that we create a proper industrial cluster.
Okay, so 3 cardinal areas. How much jobs are you guys going to be creating from this, your estimation you have mapped out in these 3 areas? Have you put a number to it?
Yes, clearly.
How much?
We believe that through agriculture, involving the rural populace, the rural farmers, the women and youths, that we should be able to create a minimum of 250 to 300,000 jobs in Imo State in a space of 4 years. Okay,
through agriculture alone.
Yes.
Let me come to you. So, in industrial sector, how many jobs will you be creating? In the last sector, where you talked about pharmaceuticals, how many jobs will you be creating?
Let me add flesh to what you said about agriculture. One of the things, if you look at the colonial records and you look at the economy of Nigeria in the early 60s, one of the things that, provided most of the revenues was palm oil. As at 1965, Nigeria controlled 45% of the global crude palm oil market. Today, that market is 75 billion, 85% controlled by Indonesia and Malaysia. Indonesia last year made about 7 billion from there. Michael Obert, as Premier of the Eastern Nigeria, built 214-kilometer industrial belt. Most of the palm plantations you have in Nigeria were built by the military men. Gowon and Obasanjo built Okomu, Presco, and even the other palm, 4,100 hectares that have been abandoned. Today, between Presco and Okomu, they do over 15 billion naira turnover annually. We came up with a proposal. If you look at Nigeria today, we have over 1.5 million tons crude palm oil deficit, supply deficit, domestic. Last 5 years, we spent over 600 billion naira importing what grows in the wild here in Nigeria. Indonesia, unfortunately, came here 80 years ago to pick the seedlings. Central Bank came up with a policy on how this value chain can be created. We did the numbers, very simple. To cover the supply gap in Nigeria, we need about 385,000 new hectares of the Tenera and Super Gene species. These governors in the Southeast weren't doing anything about it. The private sector, we came up with an initiative. Using Imo State and Abia State as a pilot scheme, Imo has 650 autonomous communities. And the South is a landlocked area, 28,000 square kilometers, smaller than Oyo State, the whole of the Southeast, and land is communally owned. Come up with simple policy, which is what Atan is going to do. Atan has the biggest agro park in the whole of the Southeast. We came up with a program, Southeast Farms. We are the communities, we developed downstream agro trees, the Tenera, 200,000 units, because we knew it would take about 9 million trees to cover those gaps. Imo State will do 20,000 hectares, every other state, and it's community based, every community doing 30 hectares.
This is the manifesto?
Yes, and the 30 hectares, if you do 30 hectares in every community, you will have 21,000 new palm trees. 2 hectares of palm trees in the whole of the Southeast. Every community will be able to make about 30 million naira revenue, 100 youths employed in every community. And what was the idea behind it? Most of the kidnappers and bandits, if you reclaim 50 hectares of community lands in every of the autonomous communities, they will not have any safe haven where they can hide and to begin to come out in the night or in the morning to come and perpetrate their crime. From that sector alone, and we even came up with an idea. We have a private sector group that had arrangement to produce, set up at least 2 cottage factories in every local government area that will process this agro-value in 3 years. Because the last species does about 30 tons. That is why somebody in Indonesia and Malaysia will produce palm oil, ship it 11,000 kilometers. It will be still cheaper here because they have the technology.
Have you put a cost to doing all of this? How much is it going to cost you?
It's going to cost about 65 billion, private sector fund driven. The state will not put a carbon jack or FAC allocation to it.
We have limited time now.
Private sector driven. 68,000 jobs created. It will add over 58 billion naira to Imo State economy on an annual basis.
Okay. I like your energy level, both of you, very fine. But one of the other issues that came up in the course of discussions in the last 2 days has to do with the security situation in Imo State. And you yourself, you alluded to it in one of the statements you made. Now, the people who came to speak here for APC, one of the points they raised was that insecurity in Imo State is politically motivated. and that it has nothing to do with the objective conditions in that state. So let me start with you, Ndudu. Do you agree with that? And then when he finishes, Dr. Obiaraeri, you know, what strategy, since you are the director of strategy, what strategies, you know, are you people thinking about to make Imo State a safe place for all? Let me start with you,
First of all,
Opara-Ndudu.
First of all, I do not share the view, or we do not share the view that all things happening in the security space in Imo State are politically motivated. If they were politically motivated, we've had this song. We've had this for the past 3 years. How come not one individual has been prosecuted successfully? So for me, it's all about politics. The security problems in Imo State has everything to do with what you rightly call the objective conditions in the state. The young people are frustrated. The government is not making the needed investments in the areas that are required. We are busy pursuing projects that, as far as we are concerned, are designs in deception. Take, for instance, I'll give you a very simple example. Look at the roads that are being done in Imo State, for example. We know that for you to deal with the problem of poverty and other economic challenges, you have to deal with the problem of infrastructure. In Imo State, the government has dedicated all of its time, or most of its time, to reconstructing federal roads without any attention, little or no attention being paid to the rural areas. If you go to the length and breadth of Imo State, Opara, Mbise, even in the governor's local government, everywhere in Imo State, you find that the rural areas are looking desolate and abandoned. Meanwhile, we also understand on very good authority that some of the resources that have been used on some of these federal roads, in addition to the massive borrowing, and by the way, Imo State, as at December last year, already had by DMO statistics, 205 billion naira in debts, which was far higher than what Ihedion had left when he was in office, which was under 70 billion. Now, in addition to the massive borrowing to do federal roads, we also understand there has been the tax for infrastructure program, which has been taken advantage of in order to do the Owerri to Umuahia road. And you go to that road, you wonder whether the road is even properly designed.
So are these the reasons why the people are killing?
What we are saying is that the misapplication of the resources of Imo State to projects that do not really concern or do not affect the rural masses. If you go to the villages, these places are desolate. Why would you have to borrow money from the banks to do federal roads when your own rural roads, where the rural communities exist, where the farmers are, and they need to bring out their produce to the commercial cities? Okay. So why do you have to do so? As far as we are concerned, it's a misapplication of investments.
Okay, Nick,
yes.
Let's hear from Dr. Obiaraeri.
Dr. Bati,
on this same issue.
To fix insecurity in Imo State is the simplest job for any sincere and honest governor. And I will tell you this. I lost my house in the village to insecurity. I lost my father's house to insecurity. I lost a factory we spent 98 million naira to build to insecurity. I'll give you an example. We had set up a pig farm in the village. One night, hungry young men went there and killed 10 weeks old pig. That will show the level of poverty and hunger in the village. Amagu Ihube, you can confirm it. Dr. Bati, very simple to fix. Involve the communities. Like I mentioned to you, we have a bago that Asari Dokubo came on air to say how he operated in Imo State. Till today, nobody in Imo State have come out to rebuke him or to debunk it.
No, this is not about Asari Dokubo.
I am coming. I'm talking about insecurity. We're talking about solutions here.
Yeah,
Dr. Bati, very simple. It's an agro-security initiative, what we're trying to do. Take the youth out of the forest. Give them jobs. And I'm giving you an example using the palm agro value chain. 50 hectares, and we are going to co-locate what we call agro rangers. The military men that were killed, if they have armored Humvees patrolling, they won't have been shot by those criminals. Atana Achono, go and confirm from Innocent, paid hundreds of millions of naira to Innocent. Innocent is alive. You guys can even interview him. To repair 9 armored APC for the police. 5 was supposed to be in Okigwe zone.
Till today, we don't know where those 9 armored cars were. You go to YouTube, you will see YouTube records of members of the State Assembly in Imo State using that APC to carry ballot boxes. It's there on YouTube. You can search it out. What Atan will do is very simple. Every local government area will have one Humvee vehicle for the police. Police stations have been totally burned down in Imo State. Atan repaired most of those police stations. Then the community vigilante. You train those 50 youths per community. Train them, equip them, arm them. They should get their communities. When you have over 50,000 hectares of land reclaimed from the bandits, and you have youths who are not just only farming, but who are trained to protect their communities. And this is private sector driven. We have set up a security trust fund. Ndimo are not scared. As of today, there are some communities in Imo State where bandits, unknown gunmen, are ransacking and collecting levies from the community. Dr. Abati, we built a factory in Abia State. Palm processing mill, 20 tons per day. One night it was burnt down by bandits from Ebony State, Eda. Those bandits did not come from Kano or Mali or Senegal. Okay. So basically, Atan Achonu will provide training, recruitment. People donated by the communities. The communities know those who are the terrible ones in their midst. And I tell you, 6 months, they will flush them out.
Okay, quickly, just before we go. Nick, this question is for you, but you have to do it in 30 seconds. Okay, just tell us something about this Senator Atan Achonu. Who is he? For the benefit of people who may not even know him. Briefly.
Okay. Incidentally, I've known Senator Atan Achonu for over maybe getting close to 4 decades. As far as I'm concerned, he's someone who has overcome challenges in several areas to be successful. To those around him, quite a number of people around him, is an inspiration. He's an epitome of hard work. He's somebody who believes that in spite of your shortcomings, in spite of the challenges you face, that you should face the challenges of life and do the best you can to succeed. And I believe that it is this quality that is taken into the governance of Imo State.
Okay, on that note, thank you very much, Nick Opara-Ndudu, and thank you also, Dr. Obiaraeri. We wish you all the best.